Hey there, I'm Christy. I blog at confessionsofaserialdIYer.com, and today I'm going to share with you how I add a stencil to a project and then make it look like it was not stenciled, but rather hand painted. So I'm going to grab a couple supplies and we'll get started. All right, to do this, there's going to be a few things that you'll need to gather. So this is my project piece. I need my stencil, and this is some spray adhesive. This is just the General Performance lightweight formula. And a couple brushes. One is going to be to fill in the stencil itself. One is going to be to connect all these little breaks that are in the stencil. This is a liner brush. This is a shading brush, but just a small brush will work. And then I've got a paper plate, and I've got my handy dandy chalk paint. So if you can see here, if I get in there closely, you can see there's no breaks from where the stencil was, because I filled those in already. So I painted this in, then I filled in the breaks with the liner brush, and after it was dry, I sanded it smooth with some 220 grit sandpaper. So it's nice and smooth, and it looks like it was hand painted more than it was stenciled. All right, and to do that, I take my stencil and my spray adhesive, and you're gonna spray the back of the stencil. So don't spray your project, spray the back of your stencil, and you'll want to do this outside because it's stinky, and so I've already done that. It's pretty smelly. All right, and I'm gonna lay my stencil where I want it. And I'm choosing not to use the keys that are in the middle of this. And it looks like I probably could have done my top line a little bit lower, but that's okay. I'm just gonna eyeball it. All right, so I'm just using this part and then this part down here. The whole thing would have fit, but it would have covered the entire surface. So, okay, looks pretty straight to me. And then I'm gonna take my chalk paint. You can see I've used this can over and over and over again. So just a very light amount on my brush, and I'm going to brush in these little details, but just a tiny little bit on there. And I try to go away from the edges as much as possible, like I wouldn't brush it towards this corner. I try to go away from the edges. I know most people probably use a little sponge brush. I don't really like the look of the stippling from the sponge brush. I don't know. It's kind of how I've always done it, so it's just how I do it. And I got kind of a lot on there that time. I'm gonna fill it in, just tiny, tiny bit of paint on there. Put a little bit more on there for these bigger. See, I'm kind of just brushing it away from the tips, from the edges. And so it will look like I've painted in that M rather than it being stippled on there. Okay, by the time I get all this filled in, it's already started to dry up here at the top. So I'm just gonna go ahead, and you might want to wait a minute or two, but I'm very impatient. So I'm just gonna keep going and give it 2 coats. Okay, I think I got it all. All right. The moment of truth. Dun, dun, dun. And voila. All right. So, looks pretty good. Now I'm going to take my liner brush. That's what I use my paper plate for, because I want to take almost all the paint back off. Can you see what I'm doing there? I'm just dipping it. Then I kind of twist it with my fingers so that there's hardly any paint on there. And you can connect, actually I need more paint than that. You can connect where the stencil breaks were. Now you're gonna see there's a ridge. I don't know if you can see that. Can you see? There's a ridge where the edge of the stencil is. That's okay because when you sand it, that will smooth out. So you just wanna fill in these breaks. And these liner brushes make it real easy to do that. They're real small, and if you can anchor your heel of your hand, it will give you some support. The brush makes all the difference in the world. So get a good brush. This is it Low Cornell? Loew. That's the ones I always end up using. All right. So you can see I just filled in the breaks. And so there's lots of little raised edges and everything. But like I did with the top part, I'm just going to sand that with a little 220 grit sandpaper, and it will smooth out just like that. All right, when it comes time to sand, everything is dry. I just take a piece of 220 grit sandpaper. This is my favorite one right now by 3M. An old sanding sponge. This is how I sand everything pretty much. I just wrap it around it, and I can just go right over the letters. All right, that's all there is to it. See how smooth it is? I hope you found that helpful, and you won't be intimidated to add a stencil to your next project. Thanks a lot, guys. Have a great day.